Welcome to the Construct Podcast, where we invite you on a journey of building and connecting. I'm Rae.
And I'm Jay. Here at the Construct, we connect with like-minded individuals who inspire us to build the best version of ourselves in all aspects of our lives.
This podcast is more than just a platform. It's an exercise in sharing our individual journeys as we learn and grow together. Each episode, we hope to bring you engaging conversations, insights, and stories from our circles in tech, nonprofit, real estate, fitness, education, and many more other communities that impact our lives. All right, everyone, welcome to the Construct Podcast. I am Rachelle.
And I'm Jason.
And we are back. And we are here to do an episode on behind the scenes flip in Pearl City here in Oahu. We're interviewing today Linda Tanaka.
Hi.
So Linda, you and I partnered on this project together. This is a little bit of a different episode that we do. We're going to start like a real estate track of different types of episodes. And so here on the Construct, we've interviewed different people who have been inspirations and stuff to us in different ways. And we're going to focus a little bit more on real estate with this one, but would love to start with just your background with real estate or just your background in general and how you got into becoming an investor.
My background is very varied. I actually went to culinary school after I got my marketing degree because the agreement was in order for me to go to culinary school, I had to get my 4-year degree. And in order to get my 4-year degree, it took me 5 years. I couldn't decide what I wanted to major in. Went from biology, travel industry management, finally just settled on marketing. Got my marketing degree, and as soon as I graduated, I went straight to KCC, got my pastry arts associates, and I went and I baked. And I opened up a small little company that obviously didn't do that great because I'm no longer doing that. And then my husband and I, got pregnant with our oldest daughter, and I no longer could do baking. So then I went to the credit union. I worked for the credit union for about 9 years. So did everything from new accounts to marketing, and eventually I ended up being the trainer there. And during that time, I realized I wanted to have more time with my kids. My in-laws, they're great, but they were raising our children. So I then decided to get a second job as a real estate agent. So I was working full-time at the credit union, working part-time as a real estate agent, like going on my lunch breaks, working 7 days a week because I wanted to come home with my kids. Eventually, after a couple of years, I just couldn't do anymore. Working 2 jobs was just too hard. And I was missing out. They were growing up quickly. So I quit the credit union, and it was one of the scariest things I've ever done. And then had another kid, stayed in real estate for a couple more years, and then realized it was on call. And I decided that's not what I wanted to do. And I do feel like God had called me to homeschool my children. So stayed home with them for a few years, homeschooling them. And then I felt like I was called back to real estate. Unfortunately, I got rid of my license. So that wasn't really the option. And I didn't really want to study again.
Or fortunately.
Or fortunate, right? It's not that I won't get my license again. It's just right now, I don't think that's the path. And then that's when I started hearing about investing. I took a couple of courses, wholesaling, buying land. And then I realized I want a local mentorship. And that's when I came across Deals in Aloha with Kamohai and Tristan. I didn't even know that because I don't watch TV. My husband works for the cable company. And I don't even watch TV. I don't watch the news. And so
You're too busy. You're too busy to watch TV. You just went through your whole list.
Yeah. And that's just, I just don't like watching TV. So I know. So, which is really funny. But I decided, okay, let's see what this local couple is doing. And I signed up for their immersion class. And that was over a year ago. And that's where I met Jason, and I was like, oh, I met some other people in this immersion class. And I'm like, wow, local people are doing this. This is what I want to do because I've done the real estate side and it's good. It's just, you're on call. Like I wanted to have a balanced time. So that's how we got to this point. And when a deal came across, as a wholesale deal, Jason and I talked about it. And then it came to hey, do you want a partner? I was like, Sure. And that's kind of where we are, fast forward up until today.
That's awesome. Can you, because I feel like Jason talks so much about a lot of these meetups that he attends and where you guys eventually met and were able to talk about this project and team up. Can you just talk about like what, like the importance of like going to these meetups and like how enriching it is to be able to be in these spaces and like talk to people who are doing things, in real estate investing, to just really talk to like-minded folks about, what they're doing, the projects they're working on?
Well, yeah, the value is in the people, right? So the resource is the relationships that you have with people. If you don't connect, you're not going to know what skills that they can bring to the table and what skills you can provide. Mm-hmm. So coming to these meetups, especially locally, because the mentorships I took prior were in the mainland. So the ones here are where you make the connections. Mm-hmm. We know a couple of investors, but, if you don't have a connection with them, you're not going to be able to work together. So definitely showing up. And that's also how, as we get into the story, that's kind of how we met our contractor, mm-hmm. is through a meetup. Mm-hmm. If I hadn't shown up, right, put my big girl pants on and showed up, wouldn't have met Jason, wouldn't have met our contractors, wouldn't have met a lot of people in this community. And so I think people underestimate the value of just like meeting people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's one thing, to go to meetups and put yourself out there. And then I think Linda and I took it a step further and actually decided to invest in ourselves in a mentorship workshop. And so that's really where we did meet just about a year ago, was at a weekend workshop, with Tristan and Kamahai that were leading it. And it was interesting because that same weekend workshop, it was where, Linda was in there, and then our contractors were in there. A lot of, there's about 15 to 20 people in that weekend. It's not only, it's one thing to go to meetups to meet like-minded people, but also to go to actual weekend workshops or mentorships where people are investing in themselves. And that's even more like-minded people because you are, you're taking that next step. So it was kind of just like, these are some serious people who want to take some action, which was really important.
I love that, because I think it's just so important to go out there, meet people, put yourself out there, because it can be a lot for people sometimes to, maybe come out of their shell, and especially new investors, right? Doing this for the first time and meeting people for the first time, like it can be quite scary.
Yeah.
So put yourself out there, folks. Break out of your shell. So you all met at a meetup, and then you decided to team up on a project. What do you feel like, how do you think the collaboration, did it work right away, or how did you make the collaboration work?
So Kamahai actually sourced this deal. He got this deal, I think, through his website, and he worked directly with the owner here and closed the deal. He was going to do the project, but thought it might be best for someone in the mentorship to do it, and him to guide, the students to do their flip. And so he offered to us on a very discounted wholesale deal. So he would typically wholesale it for a much higher price to an outside investor, but we got it at a discount. Linda actually raised her hand first and said, because this is right in your backyard. This is in your hometown. You grew up born and raised in Pearl City, and this was a condo in Pearl City nearby the church you went to growing up, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah. Can you just talk about, how you were drawn to this project and to this deal a little bit?
Yeah, so we were part of that immersion group, and they came across that Facebook. In fact, I even missed it. And Jason sent out us text. Did you guys see the deal? I'm like, no, right? The deal. I'm like, wait, I know this area, Lehua Avenue. And the funny part is, yeah, it's literally across the street that I grew up at. And the funny part was that morning, I had actually had a dream about being at the church. And I'm like, oh, that was funny. And there was a celebration. So I was like, oh, what is this? And so when that deal came across, I was like,
it's a sign.
Does this mean, is this a sign? God, is this what we're supposed to do? And there was some apprehension, of course. But, as we looked at the numbers, and I'm like, because we've been waiting for a deal. We've been looking for a deal for over a year. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, maybe this is the deal we're supposed to take, which is funny because I wouldn't have known because I don't check Facebook. Not me, a person. I need to do that. So yeah, so thank goodness Jason sent that out, and that was how it came on our radar. Yeah.
So Linda, you're actually wanting to take down this deal and just do the project on your own. And then as you and I started talking, you're like, hey, Jason, you've done a few different rehab projects recently. You have some contractor contacts and stuff. Do you want to just partner on this? And I was like, yeah, sure. I for me, I've done a lot of rehabs for rentals. So BRRRRs, like buy, rehab, refinance, hold, and rent. But I hadn't done an actual flip. And so it's kind of like a little bit apples and oranges where when you're doing a rehab for a rental, you have certain things you're doing, but you know that you can rehab it a certain way so that it is for a rental. But when it's a flip, it's a whole different ball game. So I was like, okay, this is totally different. But yeah, I think the best way to, I guess, de-risk it for yourself or, take away some of the fears you might have is if you share them with another person and kind of go 50-50 on it. So I think it made a lot of sense for us to partner on this.
Yeah. And I had done my own renovation in our condo. So I was familiar with doing that part of it. And so, I'm a female. I like things to look a little nicer than just if it was a rental.
No, I don't know if Jay shared with you that we kind of flipped our old house before we moved in Long Beach. But we had our single family home, but we created an ADU in our garage for his parents to live in before. So that was what, like a 6-month process?
Yeah, we did an Ohana unit.
Yeah.
They're called ADUs or in-law units. Yeah. So yeah, we did that. And it was like a 6-month project. And then we kind of were doing renovations to our main house.
Before we moved in.
Yeah. So it was like a live-in reno.
Yeah, but I feel you. I know we want everything to be perfect. I'm glad I hope you had a good experience with Jason because I know there was a lot of times when we were doing renovations to our house in Long Beach, it was quite challenging.
So talk about learnings. Yeah. So we learned, I think, through that. Yeah. And actually, let's just talk about the nature of our partnership and how we were able to do that and the roles. Do you want to dive into that a little bit, Linda?
Oh yeah. And I think that's why it works so well. Jason's like, we got to define roles. I'm like, that's who I want to work with already. Right off the bat, when he said define roles, I'm like, yes, I know that we want to reduce as many, bumping heads along the way. So what are our roles? And, Jason was pretty specific on, I want to do this. What do you want to do? And I said, okay, well, I like project management, the design part. He's like, good, because I don't want to do that.
Yes.
You're raised like,
no, he's not. Yeah, aesthetics, all of that, like design, no. It's not in his forte. No, not in his tool belt.
Which is why I think it works so well. And I'm a numbers person, but honestly, I prefer the design and the project management part. Because I like to see the actual transformation. Numbers part, the signing, all the fun. It's not really my thing. I can do it. I don't enjoy it. So and I think that was what really helped. And so when we defined the roles, and Jason was going to be raising the capital, doing those behind the scene things that are incredibly important, but that doesn't take away from my job so that I can focus on what I'm going to be doing. I think that was extremely helpful to be very definitive and that we would back each other up. So it's not like we weren't aware of what we were doing, but it was just knowing who was taking the reins and who had the lead.
Yeah. And I think it was, things we just learned from mentorship and all of our education on fix and flips was there's 3 parts to a deal, right? There's finding the deal, there's funding the deal, and there's managing the project. So Kamahai found the deal and we paid a small wholesale fee for that. So that was kind of taken care of. And so our roles were funding the deal, which was my primary, and then managing the project was Linda's primary. We did actually draw up a JV agreement that said, Jason the primary here, but Linda's the secondary. And so we're still in supportive roles so that we're not just dividing and conquering 100%. But yeah, it was very clear. And we had that in the JV agreement, which laid it out perfectly as well. So I like that we did that.
Yeah. It's a good format. It's a good process moving forward.
Yeah. So you found the property through Kamahai. It's in Pearl City. You decide you want to partner on this project together. What stood out about this property?
The good or the bad?
Both.
Jason?
I mean, I think the good for us was that, condo flips are, a lot smaller, a lot easier. It's all cosmetic for the most part, right? If you're flipping a home, a single family home or other, bigger projects, you're worrying about plumbing, foundation, and all type of, roofing, all the exterior things and some big ticket items. For condos, for the most part, it's all interior and it should be a quicker project. So that's what stood out to us when we were analyzing the deal. We were like, hey, this could be a 3 to 6 month project max. So that stood out. I think the other thing that stood out to us too was that we also had multiple exit strategies. So the first exit, of course, was going to be to fix it, flip it, and sell it. But we did some numbers and said, hey, the market right now, and it was a scary time in the market, because things have been volatile. Average days on market for condos was 40 to 50 days. And so we're like, if it hits 6 months on market or we hit that 6 month mark, let's refinance this and rent it. So we actually had it in our agreement as our contingency plan, backup plan, was if it was on market, if the project went longer than 6 months, we would actually hold it as a rental. So what stood out to us was that it penciled out as a rental and would probably break even or cash flow a little bit as a rental. Those are some of the pluses that stood out to me. What about you?
It was definitely, and the area was central. So we knew that either way, it was either going to be sold or it was going to be rented because inventory, right? I mean, even if we're in so-called a buyer's market, people still need some place to live. So if we couldn't sell it on the market to the pool of who we thought was going to buy in that particular area based on the type of building it was, then we knew that we could still get a pretty decent rental amount. And I think that would made just going in, like Jason said, multiple exit strategies was good to know, to discuss. And that was one thing I think new investors don't even talk about it, right? They just think fix and flip. I'm going to just flip. I'm like, no, well, what happens in the market we're in? Because it's a difficult market. Yeah, it could just stay longer. Are you willing to then do price drops? And then what comes along with that? And so I think that was really helpful when we talked about it before we even decided to actually sign any JV agreement. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And Pearl City, I think my confidence and comfort of, your insights of the area was a huge plus. I generally knew, that Pearl City is a good area that's central, get a lot of people who, can have access to town if they're commuting there or access to anywhere central if they're working at the bases or anything like that, or Pearl Harbor. So there's a lot of people that, gravitate to the Pearl City area. And it's also an area where a lot of first-time home buyer, first-time owners, like to purchase and get, their starter property, starter homes. So a lot of that stuff really stood out. And I think just as far as like analyzing the deal, obviously Kamahai got a really good deal, and it was a win-win for the person who sold it too. I mean, the seller of the deal, I met him too, really great person, and he was moving on. He just wanted a little bit of money, profit to take care of some family things. And so we got it for $175. That included the small discounted assignment fee. And then as we looked at it, I think, what was our renovation budget? Was about 35?
About 35-40.
35-40 for renovation. And we anticipated that it would sell for, 280, 290, maybe 300. Right, with a profit of about 25 to 30,000 was what we originally saw it as, and that was good for us. We knew it was going to be just a quick 3 to 6 month project. We weren't looking for $100,000 in profit on a condo, but this was going to be a nice base hit type of project that we can do.
Did you think going the route of flipping a condo versus like a single family home, like first, is the easier route to get your feet wet in the game of flipping? I want to know your thoughts.
I think generally, yes, because again, it's a cosmetic, quicker project, quicker flip. But condos do have their own challenges. Maybe we can get into that, Linda, because I know you've got quite a few.
And I think that's one aspect, right? So I think for me, having that real estate background, that prior background really helped. Because I knew what I was getting into, working with associations, especially condo association in an older building. You're going to run into issues, that could add to your timeline because they don't meet every month. There's restrictions on when you can do work, what you can do.
Let's get some specifics about that. Like, how often?
Yeah, what are some examples of any roadblocks that you guys encountered?
With HOA specifically, talk about like...
Oh yeah, HOAs. In Hawaii, notoriously in Hawaii, the townhomes associations, they just take longer to approve things. They're just a lot stricter because, right, their job is supposed to be a fiduciary for the owners so that they keep the value at a certain, but at the same time, they're volunteers. It's not necessarily their job. They're not getting paid for it. So sometimes there's no urgency. Now, if you need something like an investment to be done and turned quickly, it's not in their, it's not their first priority, right? So I think that was one thing when you're setting your expectations, knowing, yes, it's cosmetic, so it probably would be faster, but you need to make a relationship with the HOA. So I think that was one key thing, is that if you're going to go into this, build a relationship with the HOA, whoever's on the board who's going to design approval. In our case, we were very fortunate. The HOA person was actually, he pretty much ran the meetings. So if you needed anything, you could go directly to him.
Nice.
And he was very helpful, and he knew that it was an investment. So he was willing to work with this. Not all associations are like that. So that was one big issue. Then looking at condo docs, asking for these things before you get into the project, because you need to order the condo docs to see, are there special assessments coming up? Are there requirements as far as construction? Do you need permission? What do you need permission for? In our case, the building was older. Asbestos was an issue. And it just these things, like these specific things that you need to have. And so I think partly what we did, we brought a real estate agent in from the get-go. We brought him in. We asked him, take a look at the condo docs. Can you help us out? Are there any red flags? And then, of course, we missed some things, but
for the most part. No, I think that was huge that we pretty much decided, especially with a condo. I think that was good. We decided on who was going to be the agent to sell this once we were done, and kind of deployed Matt Kirk, right? We kind of deployed him early and said, help us gather the condo docs. He was able to help us look at, other listings in the building. And so he was able to get, some of the insights. But yeah, to your point, anyone that's looking to flip in a condo, understand the building, understand the HOA, because if there are special assessments, there's going to be additional costs that come with that. If the HOA doesn't have a minimum amount of reserves, then it actually limits the amount of loan type of products that can be used for that. So for example, if they have less than 10% in reserves, FHA loans, like the 3.5% FHA loans or 5% down FHA loans, those are not approved for HOAs that have less than 10% reserves. So that your buyer pool is actually lower. And for us, that's first-time home buyers right there. So those are some of the things to really understand. And then when it comes to the project perspective, what are the hours that you can do work, right? Some of them are very strict on that. Do you have to schedule things like turning off the water if you're going to do some bath, or work in the bathroom? And so just understanding all of that up front is really important before you get into it, because the HOA and the building can kind of make or break the process for you.
So would you recommend always bringing in a realtor at that stage to help you understand that process, or help you understand those docs before you move forward for just a condo project, or just in general?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. I think any new investor, it's always good to get more eyes, right? Because they have more insight. And be like, hey, don't think about this, think about that. And the other good thing that our realtor brought up is that there was another listing in the building, right? And we knew that it was already VA approved. And so then we kind of thought about, okay, what about our exit plan? Who are we actually going to be selling this to? Who's the ideal buyer in this type of building, in this type of area, at this type of price point? And we knew it was probably going to be a single or a couple military, because just the nature of the area, the building, the price point.
And because the reserves didn't allow for a regular FHA loan. So that was, we kind of had our target avatar buyer in mind, and we kind of designed to that as well, right?
That was really key. And but back to your question, definitely bringing in a realtor, I think, is always good. Not just to get the comps for sure, but to get some insight about how did they deal with this, because there may be creative ways that they have been able to work with HOAs that we may not be, privy to.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's always good to, as you're analyzing the deal, reach out to a few different, realtors to validate your comps, which is what we did. And, Matt knew the area very well. So he helped validate our comps. And also we kind of just decided early on that he was going to list it as well.
I want to get into the real meat of of the conversation and really talk about the experience of the flip.
Yeah.
We can start with numbers. I don't know. Let's just go through the whole experience. So
sure.
You find the place, you decide to collaborate, green light, everything. When you're talking about the numbers, what made everything make sense for you? Well, I guess you did mention that, right?
Yeah, so it did make sense as far as the numbers were concerned. And we can just kind of talk about raising the money, and then we'll get into the project management. But raising the money, that was primarily my area. And I'll talk about some of the things that worked and some of the things that didn't work so well. So because it was a lower price point, and typically for fix and flip, I think the best practice way is to get a hard money loan. So you go to a hard money lender who would typically loan at 10% interest rate. They'll give you about 80 to 90% of the home value, plus they'll cover all of your renovation costs. And so that's the best way to do it. And then so if you have 80 to 90% covered plus your renovation, then you just have to raise, the rest in gap funding or private money, lending. So that's the best case scenario, best practices. Because it was a lower price point, I got a little overconfident. And I said, why don't we just raise it all private? Because we can raise it all private. It'll be very simple. And we don't have to go through hard money processes and all that stuff. Because with hard money lenders, the one drawback is that, well, not drawback, but one of their processes is that they give you money via draws. Mm-hmm. So you do the first phase, and then they'll give you, they'll reimburse you on that. They call it a draw. Then you do the second phase, and they'll give you the draw. So for this one, it was like, this is such a quick project. Do we have to do all the draws? Let's just get it all private. So I went to work and started to get private money. I had 5 or 6 really solid people who were wanting to do this deal. Unfortunately, this is how the market works. During the time that I was raising private money is when every other day when you logged into the news or turned on the TV, Linda, you don't turn on the TV, but you probably heard from different news outlets, tariffs, all the different, things that were happening. And people were, actually it was just when tariffs were getting announced. And so everybody just got scared all at once. So all the private lenders, one by one, it was just like every other day for about 3 weeks or so, they were all just pulling out and saying, you know what, I need to hold on to my money because I don't know what's going to happen in the market in the next few months. And so we were 3 weeks in and had no funding secured. And so we did go find another lender, which was for all intents and purposes a hard money lender. And we were able to get hard money for the deal. But yeah, it was a little bit of an interesting process that it was unorthodox in that sense where I guess I'll go a little bit more detail, but we got a short-term 30-day loan from a private money lender that just covered the purchase to buy us time to get the actual hard money lender in there. Mm-hmm. So we did an extra amount of lending on this, which was unnecessary, but it was because I was overconfident in the beginning. So I found someone, kind of an emergency person that said, I'll lend you enough to close the deal on 30 days. And then after 30 days, replace me with your hard money lender, which is what we did. So the learnings for me there from a money raising standpoint was go with the best practices up front and don't try and get cute with it, especially if it's a new deal, because markets change and all that stuff changes. And also, if you're doing multiple transactions, that's multiple transaction fees, more escrow fees, more title changing, and all that stuff too. So
you would have gone with a hard money lender from the beginning.
But on the other side, on the good side of things, we still had to raise private money, right? So that we got the hard money, we still had to raise about 80 or so thousand to cover the gap. And this was one of the coolest things that just kind of, we had to raise about 80,000 for the gap. And I wasn't even trying to raise money. I hopped on a conversation with an old colleague that I used to work with in tech. And we were just catching up. And we were just talking about what we're up to. He was kind of going through some career shifts. And he was like, so what are you up to? And I was like, oh, doing a couple things in real estate. I'm just kicking off this condo flip project. And he was like, oh, tell me more. What are you doing? And so I told him about it. And I was like, yeah, if you know anybody, we're trying to raise about, 80,000 or so. And he's like, oh, I think I might have a friend. Send me some more information. I was like, sure. So what started with just a catch up conversation was I sent him the information. And then he replied back, the same day. And he was like, yeah, I was talking about the friend, but I was actually interested more for me. So I'm interested in doing this deal. Let's go. And so that's how we got the private money lending for this, which was pretty cool. So for me on that, it's just always talk about what you're doing. Tristan and Kamai talk about it all the time. Always talk about what you're doing to people, because you never know if they know someone or if they're quietly interested as well in getting into some of the projects.
And my understanding is that you haven't talked to this former colleague in years, right?
Yeah, it's been over 10 years. And he just popped something on LinkedIn and said, hey, you want to catch up? And I hopped on a call with him, and it was awesome catching up, number one, because it was just like, picking up where we left off. But number two, we ended up partnering on this. So
importance of affirmations.
Yeah, you put it out there, but I think through the project, even before we were done with it, he was like, okay, when's the next one? I kind of remember you telling me that. I was like, that was good, because, he built trust in that we could do something together, that it came together quickly. It was what he could stand by as far as what the product looked like. So I think that was a testament to building relationship, talking about what you're doing, putting it out there, and then actually there'd be proof that we can back it up, saying that what we say we're going to do, we can actually deliver it, and someone can align with it and then want to continue working with us.
And from a project management perspective, like Linda was really great about using some cool tools. So we used Company Cam, which is a tool that you can upload all of the pictures and progress of the project. And we added, our private money lender on there. So anytime a new picture came up, he was looking, and we could have sent him reports. I actually, asked him, I was like, hey, do you want a formalized report? And he was like, I logged into the app and I saw, he was like, it's amazing how fast you guys are moving. So that was a really good tool that, was number one about transparency, and number two really helped our credibility as we were going through the project.
Yeah, using that Company Cam from the project management side definitely helped me to keep track of what was going on with the construction side. So I didn't have to be there every single day. The contractor could upload the pictures. I could see what the progress was. And the same thing, right? Our private money lender could see it. Jason could see what was going on. Like, even during this project, which is funny, Jason, right, went on a trip with you.
Yeah.
And I was like, my partner is gone.
I was like, oh, hey, by the way, I'm going to be on vacation for 2 weeks visiting family in California right in the middle of the project.
I'm like, okay. and right at that time, I had also gotten sick. So I was like, oh, man, I'm just out here. No, but that's why you have a team, right? And so my husband would help take me, drive me, because I wasn't feeling the best. And my daughter would help me too. So that was really great. And then as well, then after the project was done, I had planned the vacation. So literally we were in escrow by that point, but we had you can tell that story too when we get there. But it's funny how both of us took vacations during our first projects.
Right.
Yeah. Hey, it got done. Yes. So that's all that matters at the end of the day. Just a quick question about Company Cam. Is that something that most investors who use, is that a tool or a platform that's used often? It feels like it's a Google Sheet or a Google Doc or Google Drive for collaboration for teams. Is that something that's often used?
Some people use it. It's recommended in our mentorship circles and stuff. But I think a lot of people use, Dropbox or Google Drive. Company Cam is just an extra app that does things like it builds reports and other stuff too. So yeah, not an ad for Company Cam, but definitely an endorsement. Yeah. It's a good tool.
I was going to say, that's just awesome that your PMLs would be able to just log in, be able to see the progress of how their money is working for them and how the project is evolving. That's cool.
But speaking of the project, maybe you can talk about how we looked for contractors, how many bids we got, and how we actually ended up with the contractors that we working with.
So backstory is in the Deals in Aloha, right? When we had our first immersion class, I didn't actually attend in person. I virtually did it. I did eventually come to an in-person one, but through one of the meetups, I met Jared and Elise. They have a construction company, and we had actually been having our own meetings with Matt Kirk, the realtor, Jared and Elise, and we actually all met up together for the first time. I knew both of them, right? But everybody actually met for the first time in last October at Price Into Paradise. So we all got to meet there because we all ended up coming, and then we started having regular meetings, like every month, every couple of weeks. It depended on our schedule.
So you were proactively building a team already.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
That's what we learned in training, right?
Mhm.
Build a team. And so, I know the value of a team, right? Because you can't project manage anything if you don't have a team.
Mhm.
And so we started meeting. We were meeting from like October through up until like the beginning of this year. And then we thought, okay, the deal isn't coming yet. Everybody's pretty busy, but we had at least gone through the steps. We had seen multiple properties. We had done the analyzer. So we knew that when the deal actually came through, at least we had practiced and talked about it.
Mhm.
We hadn't defined roles. That's why we needed Jason. Jason's like, define roles. But when we did actually have this deal, when it first came up, immediately before we even bought the assignment fee,
Mhm.
we were getting bids. We called a bunch of people, asked, Jason, do you know anybody? He had some referrals. I looked some people up. Of course, our first choice was Jared and Elise, but they were actually not going to be here. They were going on vacation. See, it's like triple vacation.
It's vacations.
Yeah, that's right. And they were going to be gone for an extended amount of time, like 3 weeks. So there was like no way. That's how long our project would have taken.
Mhm.
They would have been just gone in that window. So we got multiple bids. I think we ended up getting 6 or 7 bids.
Yeah, and one of our top people that I've worked with before, was one of our primary folks we were looking at as well. And I've done multiple projects with him and his crew, but he just wasn't available. He's been slammed. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the things with contractors. You can build relationships and have your primary contractor, but good contractors get booked. And so, number one, if you don't have continuous projects to keep them busy, they're going to have other projects to do, and they may not be available for your next one. So you got to have a depth chart.
And granted, it's a condo, right? And it wasn't necessarily a big job, so that could have also played into that.
Yeah.
Which was why we got so many bids.
Yeah.
I don't think you typically get 6 or 7
bids.
Like
2 or 3.
Or you have a couple, a handful of preferred contractors, right, that would be available. But long story short is that we finally had to decide on somebody. But because of, again, working with the HOA, we couldn't just hire a handyman.
Mm-hmm.
They required us, they had to vet the people.
Mm-hmm.
So that limited who we could work with as well. It couldn't just be anybody. Mm-hmm. It had to be licensed. Everybody had to be licensed. We had to get approval. So right before we started, I guess the rehab project, we finally decided on somebody. Get a call. And actually, let's just put it this way. We're playing phone tag. Couldn't get in touch with the person. Mm-hmm. Had an inkling there was something not, going on. Mm-hmm. Come to find out they weren't able to do the job. Mm-hmm. And this was about 4 days before we started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we had to scramble. We had multiple people that were backups, but at the same time, throughout this process, we also found that there was asbestos.
So that was a big factor. Mm-hmm. So asbestos delayed us, which actually changed the availability of some of the contractors too. So let's dive into the asbestos and what you learned there.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that asbestos. And that's typical working in an older building, right? So we had it tested, but come to find out the part that we tested wasn't even the part that it was negative. It was the other stuff that was positive. That was what we weren't expecting.
Yeah, so it had popcorn ceiling, which most of the time you're like, okay, well, let's see if there's asbestos because that typically has it. And so we had it tested for a couple $100 and they were like, nope, there's no asbestos in there. And we were celebrating. We're like, yes, let's go. Yeah. But we wanted to, just have good due diligence. So we had it fully tested. Is that right?
Yeah, went back and fully tested because it looked like the original flooring had been removed and covered up with new flooring, right? So we had that tested and we wanted to rip out some tile, had that tested as well. Those came back positive. And are like, oh, okay, so now that changes who we can use, right? So now we have to have another contractor come in prior to remove it based off of the state of Hawaii Department of Health rules. And so that costs a lot. Abatement and removal is very pricey.
And so that was another 2 to 3 bids. We went through different asbestos folks deciding that, and that delayed us how long? 2 weeks?
Timing wise, it actually only delayed us about a week because we were able to do a lot of the footwork before because our buy side escrow got extended multiple times.
That's right. Yeah.
So it worked out as far as didn't push us back too far. But then now when it came, like Jason said, when it came time to actually starting the project, certain contractors were no longer able to do the job.
Because they weren't licensed to handle asbestos.
Oh, no, we had to go with a specific contractor just to remove the asbestos. They had to be an abatement and removal company. Okay. So we went with them, but then we had to hire a separate contractor
Okay, so
GC
it's two
just
separate
for the
entities.
project. Yes.
But then because it was delayed, it ended up being delayed about 2 or 3 weeks total, based on the actual purchase that was getting delayed. And by that time, some contractors were not available for the job. But
So now when I think about these hiccups,
yeah,
when you discover these new things, I still remember Tristan and Kamahai talking about this during immersion, but like you have your renovation project, your air, right? And then did you account for asbestos and what that was going to cost into the gap funding that you had to raise
we had,
for
I think our emergency fund that we had in there was probably 5,000, additional.
It was about 5,000. It wasn't much.
It wasn't as much. And so how much did the asbestos end up totaling?
Well, asbestos abatement removal was 13,000, but because they ended up finding mold as well, they had to remove extra drywall. So now the contractor's bid now was higher because now they have to replace all the drywall that was removed. So that added another $4,000 to $5,000.
So it was like 18 grand altogether additional when our emergency was 5. So then that just started to eat into our profit from there. But good thing that we, had a healthy enough profit margin that we could absorb that. But it definitely ate into it. But one good thing about asbestos is that they basically did the demo for us. So they demoed it. But and also one thing is like we weren't allowed to be in the condo for the time that they were doing the asbestos. So we just they took some good pictures and stuff for us as well.
That was fun. It felt like, nothing was getting done, but actually that was a bulk of, and when we think back about it, on that, I would have, if we had found out after the fact that there was asbestos and that our general contractor was, demoing stuff and inhaling that stuff, I would have felt really bad, so it was good that we actually did do our due diligence and just make sure. So at least we knew the environment was safe. We did it based off of the Department of Health rules. Everything we did was ethically correct, morally correct. Yeah. It did cost. But you know what? That's the
price you pay to be able to sleep at night, Yeah.
Yeah, and that's talking about partnerships too. When Linda and I decided to partner, we also, got to know each other really well, and we knew that our values aligned. And what better test about our values was this up front, which was we did have, a couple contractors that said, you could just wipe it down and do something quick and put some flooring on top of it. But we wanted to know that, there's going to be a family that lives here for a long time. And we don't want to expose them to that. We wanted to make sure that we felt confident that when, we did get offers on the property after the sale, that we are 100% confident that there's nothing wrong, that there's nothing asbestos related here, and that we wouldn't have to go back and forth on, something questionable. So our values aligned on that, and that really helped us out, especially when we sold it, to feel that confident about it. So do the extra work, spend the extra few $1,000s to make sure that you have all of the safety things in place. You don't want to cut corners when you have families moving into these places.
For sure. Yeah.
And, moving on as far as the contractor, eventually we did.
It's a cool story.
Because everything. Yeah, this is the cool story. And this is how there's right, God is in this, because when we finally got all that taken care of, Jared and Elise actually came back from their vacation. And it said, hey, do you want to give us a bid? Because our contractor kind of just bailed, and our backup one, that we're not going to be able to use him because of all the costs now. They came in and they did a bid, and they said, actually, we're ready. We actually have not ready, but we actually have time in our schedule.
The timing is impeccable.
Yeah.
And I was like, really? And so they were able to give, and the bid they gave was a really good bid. It was comparable to everybody else, and it fit within our budget still yet. So they came in and they did the work, and they did all the extra repairs. I don't know if Jared was probably like, what happened here? Like, it was asbestos. You got to now fix everything. And so it was great to work with them, because along the way we had already known each other, but working with them, knowing that their values are similar as well, right? We don't just come in and do cosmetic things. We're coming in and what does the client want? And I believe that they did such a clean job, and I think that, customer service wise was really important. They're very upfront with us, with how long it was going to take, if they needed extra time, but pretty much the timeline they gave us, they stuck to it. And some things they could have probably even gotten done ahead of time. So it was great working with them. I'm sure we're not going to have that experience every single time, But it was great to kind of balance the other things that happened.
Right.
No, and I think one thing about working with Jared and Elise, and shout out to them, they got, they're also investors too, so they understand the numbers, right? So we were openly transparent about, here's our analyzer, here's what we're trying to do. Here's how much we're trying to make. This is how much we lost on asbestos, and so they gave us a fair deal, and they knew what numbers we were working with, and so it worked out for everybody.
Any other hurdles that came up during the flip or with the rehab, like the timelines, permits?
Luckily, we didn't have to get permits for this one because it was all, But yeah, maybe talk a little bit more about the project. I mean, I feel like, honestly, Linda, I think you were a little more hands-on than I expected in the project. I think in a good way. Like you were constantly going there. You were checking things out. You were ordering materials. I think you really took this opportunity to understand the cost of materials, which is also a best practice. Like I think Tristan and Kamai say that, especially on one of your first couple deals, order as many materials as you can so that you understand the differences between material costs and labor costs. And so you were in there ordering stuff all the time, right?
Well, and that was something we had a conversation early on, right? Like we could have just had the contractor order everything, right? Bid with the materials. He says, what do you want to do? I says, well, at this point, from training, right? Tristan had said, it's better for you to know what everything costs. So who is overpriced, right? What does it cost? And you can at least have negotiating power. Like, okay, that's a little bit high. We can get it for this. And I had done my own rental, just like you guys did your own rental. So you guys have a ballpark figure and then you want to shop around. And I wanted to do my options. I'm like, okay, I haven't done a rental in like 6 years. So how have the prices changed? So yeah, I was ordering things. We went to multiple cabinet places, multiple flooring places. Of course, we went to big box stores too to see, and we went to specialty places, but ordering it and seeing how long it's going to take, how much it's going to cost, I think really opened my eyes to be like, okay, the material itself doesn't cost a lot. It's the labor involved. So now at least I could get a better estimate about moving forward, how much labor is going to be, knowing how much the material is going to be. And even the finishes, right? Did I have to get everything, and talking to multiple contractors, they had different opinions on what kind of finishes, like recommendations of don't get this brand, get this brand. So it was helpful. Hands-on, yeah. I mean, it was close. I live in Milani. Pro City is very close. It kind of was like a baby, right? Like you had to kind of give attention to it. And picking stuff up, it wasn't out of the norm for me because I'd done that for my own renovation, right? But I think what I learned this time around is the next time, I don't want to be as involved.
Yeah.
I want to be like, hey, contractor, this is what it is. Anything that's small, you need to take care of that. Yeah. And I think that would be good moving forward. But just knowing what the prices are, I think, and it was an older building. So the reason I had to keep going to the stores was because the fixtures were old. The plumbing was old. The jealousies, you need to get jealousy handles. With older building, that's another issue, right? You got to look they may not even make those parts. So I think that was the reason why.
Especially with condos, and this is like the second or third time that I've experienced this with a bathroom reno in a condo, is that sometimes they have older fixtures or older, fixtures that you can't just replace with any new fixture for the water fixtures. And so sometimes you have to order a very specific part from that same manufacturer, and hopefully they make the same thing, or you just find a way to use the current fixtures and make them look new too. So those are all different paths and creative ways to do it. But I think one thing, and kudos to you, Linda, that by going through that process, not only did you understand the pricing, but you started to build some relationships with different cabinet folks and different material folks. And so you're out there, it's not just a blind thing where you know who ProSource is and Golden Cabinets and all these other places, but you have some contacts there. And you build some relationships.
And I think that's key for new investors. I think you're just relying on the contractor to do it all. But really, if you do change contractors, you should have a relationship with the vendor. Make those relationships, because eventually you may work with them. So you might as well have, and you get favor, right? You develop that relationship. They're more willing to special order something for you, or take something back that they wouldn't necessarily have done because you built a relationship.
Yeah. I think we had surplus of some materials, and typically one of the vendors doesn't allow for returns, but they made an exception.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So got a few $100 back. Not $18,000 back, but a few $100.
Yeah.
Anything else? Yeah. Like
anything else that we didn't cover for
the renovation, the
for
kitchen?
yeah.
Like, how did actually, let's dive into that. Like, what was your inspiration for the kitchen, the bathroom, the flooring?
Oh, the design.
Mhm.
Okay.
Design.
So I do remember Tristan, right? She talks about, I think about if I were to live here, how would it function?
Yeah.
And that's how I am too. So like when I did my renovation, I'm like, what do I want? How am I going to function in this space? What doesn't currently work, but what will work? And so, you know, I'm the only female with males and partners male. And I'm like, we should just do the same thing and leave it like that. I'm like, no, let's change it up a little. Let's make it more functional. And so of course I want it aesthetically to look nice. I want it to be practical, but I also want it to be, I guess for me, it's got to be easy to clean. And I know that's not always important to people, but it was right by the freeway. The condo's right by the freeway. They're jealousy windows. Stuff's going to come in from the outside. I wanted it. White was not going to be a good option. You know, so just taking all those things into considerations, right?
That's such a good insight right there. Like that is, you know, because I remember you telling me, you're like, you know, my mom, my parents like have a high, you know, third or fourth, you know, level place near the freeway. And guess what? There's always dust coming from the freeway and debris and stuff. And so you had that insight. Jealousy windows, you open them up, there's stuff coming in. So no whites. Like, let's make it easy to clean because you're going to have stuff to clean all the time. So that seems like it's something small, but that's a huge insight that people will appreciate with the end product.
Yeah, and definitely even thinking about, right, long term, because we're not flipping here to just be like, hey, make a quick buck, right? We're really transforming the place so that it is for longevity. The reason we're rehabbing these places and renovating it is not that it's going to last maybe 3 or 4 years. It's going to be 10, 15 years until the next time it needs to possibly get renovated. So that's kind of where we think about the quality of the products, right? We want to put in flooring that's going to withstand, not luxury, right? Depending on where you are, like this is a 1-bedroom condo. And even the cabinets, we want to make sure that we could have just painted it, right? And not gone through all that and saved a whole bunch of money. But that's not the kind of rehab, right? We want it to be fresh so that the next person who buys it can stay there longer.
Absolutely.
That's great insight.
And I like things, especially because it was a smaller condo, smaller space. I mean, actually for 1 bedroom was 525 square feet. That's actually pretty big for 1 bedroom. But we wanted to go light, like everything very light, bright. And so we picked very complementary colors, put in a little bit of, nothing's overly over the top, because we kind of figured if it was a male who is going to purchase this, he may not want very feminine touches. And then just going, like, I like a very monochromatic, but with texture, but also easy to clean. Right? Because it's all it is. If you can't maintain it, the person who lived there is going to be like, I'm so frustrated. Why did they pick this? It is so difficult to clean. So those are the things that I looked for when I was designing.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you some credit on the design. You know, really nice tiles you picked. You know, large vertical tiles you put in the kitchen. I'm sorry, in the bathroom. In the kitchen, it was, you know, really good quartz tile, and also the backsplash. The backsplash felt like it elevated it a little bit too, which was nice. And then the cabinets, it was like a nice, you know, kind of gray color in the cabinets. But one of the cool things that elevates it, that's very cheap, was you got these gold pulls. You know, the handles. And it just made the space feel, you know, so like you can really elevate a space with, you know, handle pulls or with your light fixtures. Those are very inexpensive ways to like make it feel, you know, that much.
The design was beautiful, Linda. Like when I first walked in there, I think the part of it being just airy and light, because so much of the space receives natural light from the outside. So you feel that. It was beautiful. Yeah, the aesthetic was beautiful.
I think my favorite thing was there was a hallway cabinet there that was kind of like piecemealed. Like it looked like there was an old cabinet, and then they kind of built a new cabinet on top of it. And it is where they had their, you know, it was one of the main storage spaces of the entire place, you know, not just for your towels and linens, but for extra stuff. And so we put a kind of almost a custom cabinet there, a brand new one, which it's as simple as it sounds. I think it made the entire thing because it was one of the places, the hallway that you walk past all the time to go to the room, the bathroom when you enter. And so when you saw that, it was just like, it was so much cleaner, so much more functional, and just like a brand new like cabinet. I think it was interestingly enough, it was like my favorite thing of the entire place.
No, which is funny because that's even what Matt, our realtor, said. He said his favorite part of it was that hallway closet, and it's actually a pantry that they could cut down to size to fit in this space, and then they trimmed it out, so it looked like it was custom, and it was actually custom. But it was pricey, but it was worth it. Absolutely. Right? And having things that just those, like you said, Jason, just those small little touches. It's like you gotta wear earrings. I learned that from like taking professional photos. You gotta have earrings. I'm like, what? I'm like, it's like putting earrings on the project, and it was
the small details. Really count. Make a difference.
But I must say, the staging really brings the place to life. So shout out to Matt's wife, Chastity, June Staging. She just said, what do you want? And I just sent her a couple of Pinterest ideas. And literally, she brought that to life in that space. It was more than I could have imagined. It was better than I could have imagined.
For sure. I mean, anybody that wants to fix and flip and just list it without staging, I mean, I think it's spend a few $1,000s or however much, you're going to allocate towards it for staging, because it makes the house and the property come to life. There was another listing in that building that was sitting there for 60 to 70 days, may not have been sold yet, might still be there.
Unstaged.
And it was not staged. It was just empty. And ours, credit to the staging and the renovation, everything, it was on market for 16 days. That was it, so we priced it well and it was staged. And one cool thing too is like, when you work with a stager, you give them some feedback. So one of the things is we have a balcony, lanai, and, it's right next to the freeway. So your view was the freeway, and we had some curtains, but you can kind of see through. And last minute, then when I walked through, I was like, when you walk through, you can kind of see through the curtains and you're seeing the freeway. Like, can we put some thicker curtains in there so that you can kind of like block it off, so that you can still get the light, but not necessarily see all of that. So they swapped it out. And I think that did make a difference in how it was viewed, because when, your first impression when you walk in is that you're in this enclosed space.
Oh yeah. So you flip it, everything's good. You guys list it. It's on the market for 16 days. What were your expectations, and how was that experience? What was that experience like?
So luckily, timing's everything, right? So we were delayed, a few weeks in the beginning, but what was amazing is by the time we were able to list, there was like 2 or 3 comps that just sold, in a nearby area, for like $349, like really, really high price points. The buildings and stuff were not as comparable. They had better amenities and stuff, but it was a technical comp for us. So we were able to take those comps, and it was higher than what we projected, we would actually sell for. So we increased the list price from our original 300 to like 315, right? So we were like, hey, maybe we'll get, a little bit more than that, but we were able to do that based on timing. And so that was great, but it didn't mean we weren't nervous.
And that's okay. So this is the part that I think a lot of investors miss. You do all this work, right? First, you got to acquire it. Then you do the project management. If you do not market it, you need to market it well. We were limited. We knew we were limited on who the buyer pool was going to be. So I have a marketing degree, right? And so I'm like, no, we got to market the what out of this. So we hired, even though it was a 1-bedroom condo, we hired a professional videographer, took professional photos, put that on our social media. Our agent did agent outreach and blasted it to his contacts. I had people from even just seeing it on Instagram, like, oh my gosh, I will share this with people. We knew that we wanted VA people. Jason and I, we talked about, okay, we got to market to those people. So a realtor plus, our contacts, we pushed it to those markets to put it in front of as many eyes as possible. So I would check, like Zillow, you would see by far ours had like hundreds of more views, hundreds of more views than comparable or even better comps.
Yeah.
And that's it. You gotta work it. If you don't work it and put it out there, people can't see it.
I mean, invest in the media. So shout out to Peer Films. They did an amazing job. Not only did they do some, walkthrough videos and everything, but they also did the overlay of the of the layout, which is always helpful
Yeah.
because we talk about like it being functional, but some people like to have that overhead view of, how does this laid out? So they were able to do that with like the staging in there, which was cool. So really good rendering. And then at the end of the day too, like you want some really cool professional media to capture your project. Like look at this project I did. I'm proud of it. And look at how amazing, it's not cell phone pictures. It's like amazing like videos and pictures and stuff too. So yeah, the marketing was spot on.
Yeah. And it's funny because Mark and Malia, they were actually our neighbors before. So we knew them from a long time ago. And, they came back to Hawaii and he got out of the Coast Guard and he wanted to do something with his wife. He wanted to work with his wife. Mm-hmm. And they got into, real estate videography and photography. And I'm like, wow, this is who I want to work with. I know they're good people. And that is building a team, right? What relationships do they have the same values? Because we could have gone with another one, but no, this is who I wanted to work with. And I think the product came out and it showed how much they cared, right? It's a one bedroom, but they still treated it like it was $1 million, $2 million listing. I'm like, oh, thanks.
Absolutely. No, and that is like, building the team, having people that align with your values. It's not just you're working with vendors who are just doing a job for you. Like everyone is just a little bit more aligned and has just a little bit more effort that what they put into it. And all that additional effort from each person just turns out to an amazing product and something that's sold within 16 days.
So how did that sale go? How did it go for you?
It was a tough market again, right? I was antsy. I wanted it to sell within one day, but Linda was like, 40 days is the average for condos. I'm like, okay, it might sit for a month. I was nervous. Matt had some open houses and was not getting much traction, but finally a couple weeks in, started to get some traction and got an offer from a military person, VA loan, exactly what we're looking for. And I think it was fairly smooth. I think going back to the HOA and all that process, when someone's purchasing, they're going to request for the condo docs and HOA docs and everything. And so that was a process. Sometimes you have to rush documents and some HOAs don't take online payments. You have to physically drive to their office and drop off a check so that they can rush a document for you.
Are you saying that from experience, Jason?
I'm just saying it just in general. Sometimes you got to do that stuff. HOAs, to their credit, HOAs are not high tech corporate companies that have all these, tools and processes. Like sometimes they just have some slower, outdated processes based on the resources they have available. But yeah, there was a little bit of a delay there, or just, some extra due diligence there. I don't know if it was just us, but anytime the buyer had a question or there was a little bit of back and forth, like I think we'd freak out a little bit. We're like, are they going to back out? Like just at any given point, you're just afraid that they're going to back out for some reason, right?
Which is funny because that's kind of right. My former life as an agent, you're always like, and I'm like, it's fine. It'll be good. I mean, there's always that. There's always the possibility they're going to back out. But I'm like, it'll fine. It'll work out. First time home buyers, because I've worked with them before, they tend to be a little bit more nervous about their first purchase, right? And if you think about it, we don't know how old he is, but he could have been a younger military coming to another state for the first time, maybe his first purchase, I don't know, and it depends on how their agent, their expectations. So you could just kind of tell everybody was a little bit green, which I think this whole process we learned, we worked with a lot of green people, which is not bad because we were green too, right?
We were we were green at one point in purchasing, and we were absolutely green on this flip. So everybody was kind of coming into us.
It was interesting to see. And as we mature, you're like, okay, how do we help the buyer not be so nervous? We've done the due diligence. This is exactly why we knew going in. But like as far as you then selling it, if in a few years, same thing, you're probably going to sell to a military person. So don't worry, because if you look at the history of this building, you're going to be like the fifth or sixth owner. So it's not like this place will not sell. And you're literally buying equity. We've built equity already for you in the deal. That's the added value. So no matter what you're buying, you're already going to be in an appreciation state, and there's built-in equity.
Absolutely.
Is there any feedback that the buyer gave? Any feedback worth sharing?
I think the buyer just had said that they had gone to, I think they went to those comps And they said of all the places that they went to, they liked ours the best. Ours was their first choice because the way it was done, the price, and so it was desirable to them. And he also made sure, but we still want the place, but we still got to do our due diligence. I'm like, oh, no, I get that part. Well, Jason's like, oh my gosh, are we going to close? No, that's not true. Because there were times too, I was like, is he going to bail? But, when it comes down to it, we don't want him purchasing something he's not comfortable either, right?
Yeah.
It's got to work for everybody. And if we know that, right, yeah.
And that's where the extra asbestos work and all the stuff we did, like we slept well at night. We had the utmost confidence that there would be no issues with their inspections or anything. So if we cut some corners, and stuff like that, if we did that, then I would be nervous, during their J1 inspection period, but we did not. So
is there anything you would have done differently?
I mean, from the lending,
anything you would have done differently or anything you would do differently next time?
Yeah. I mean, I think I shared it earlier, but yeah, from my role in the raising the money, number one, I would go hard money right away. And number two, I would be pre-raising money. I think that's always, always talking to people about what you're doing, get people to want to invest in your next project. So when that project does come up, you're ready to go and say, hey, here's the project, let's go. So from a money raising standpoint, I would do that.
How about you, Linda?
I think, and that was the other part, the buying in under whose company for a partner.
Yeah. Oh, yes. So this was our first JV, right? And so we're like, let's put it under your LLC instead of my LLC. We just kind of flipped a coin. I don't know.
I don't even know how we decided.
Yeah, we just decided. And she was like, yeah, we'll put it under mine. And what I learned about that from the funding perspective is actually when you're doing all the hard money lending, it's going under the person who's, owns the LLC. And so Linda actually had to do a ton of paperwork and stuff for the actual hard money lending because it was under her LLC. And I was just kind of like, that's my role. I should be doing all that paperwork, but we didn't put it under my LLC. That was going back 100% do that. Actually, we're going to do that on our next deal. But we just didn't understand that from the way we structured our JV.
I'm glad we learned it on this project because it was a shorter project, right? I'm glad that we learned it this time. What I think I learned this time around is, I think the most important part for me is contractors. It was the contractors, having a good relationship with the contractor can really make or break the deal. And that's kind of where, because the bids are going to come out all pretty similar, or you hope so, right? You can weed out the ones that are either too high or too low. But it's who are you going to be able to communicate with, which is, I think, what Jason had told me. Who do you feel like you can actually work with? I'm like, that's a good point. And knowing already Jared and Elise, and I've seen, their work from pictures, right? They posted. I'm like, okay, I think this is who I would want to. I know what their values were, right? I've also seen some of the other contractors work, and I know they do really
great work.
I mean, I was impressed. Very hard to impress. No, I'm just joking. But it was who am I going to work well with, right? And so I think that was my biggest takeaway. So if you have to choose the person or the people that you believe that you can work well with. Even because when it comes down to things that are going to get sticky or hard, run into issues, you want to be able to have good communication.
Right.
If you're already struggling from the get-go, it's just going to make it harder. So actually the project management part, even though there was a lot of me driving certain places, to me, that was the easiest part of this whole project.
Yeah. Because
the relationship was already there. The trust was developing, right? And so, I mean, that's pretty much what I learned from this. That's the thing that I would do differently, though, is I'd be like, Jason, I need your opinion.
A lot of times she'd ask me for design opinion. I'm like, yeah. She's like, which tile? I'm like, I don't know, pick one. But I'll lean into a little bit more of my design.
Ray, I'm going to ask you.
So,
oh yeah. I'm like, Linda, just text me directly. He's. I don't want to say you're not talented in that way, but I'm just
it's not my forte.
It's not, and that's okay.
It's all
I'm
good.
glad
That's why
that
we
you
partner with people that complement skills.
Right. But
I will say though, as far as partnership with contractors, one thing we didn't mention is that when we changed out the toilet, there was a small leak that happened in the downstairs unit. And so it was only, a few $100 that we had to go fix them their drywall, but we had to communicate with them. And having a good relationship with Jared and Lisa and our contractors, they kind of came after all the project was done.
Mm-hmm.
And they went there and wrapped it up, and did the drywall and stuff. So when things come up, when it's not when you're in a building and something happens to another unit, then you need to take care of that. Having good communication, having someone that will make sure they're taking care of it for you in a timely fashion. That all just comes with the trust and the alignment of values.
That was really key for me. And the other part that was really, I think, great to see is that you guys work together as a couple. Jared and Lise work together as a couple, our realtor and his wife. And then behind the scenes for me was my husband. He was the one taking me to Home Depot, taking me to the cabinet place. He was there behind the scenes, and he works a full-time job. And so it was, the unspoken hero for me was my husband.
Oh, Chad was awesome.
He's so, even when we had, a meetup there, he was the person holding the door, directing people where the unit it was. And so we've always worked well together. And so this is just another testament to how you align with the right people. And it really helps make the things that are hard more bearable. Right. Mm-hmm. So
Chad was also cleaning stuff up. Like when we were doing cleanup, he was on his hands and knees, scrubbing down the lanai, like all the different, so he was making the place shine too. Mm-hmm. And I know also during the times when you were trying to work through some things or, you were feeling some challenges and you and I were on the phone, Chad was there too, just kind of listening in and supporting. So all of that, that whole network is always important. Support groups.
So I want to know how this experience influenced your future or your approach to future deals. And if you'd give any advice to investors moving forward about like partnering, JVing, or what is your take on that?
As far as approaching a deal, I think having a smaller project up front is always good because you can work out the kinks. You can go through an entire process with a, smaller error, less risk. So that was good. And finding someone that, again, aligns with your values, that you have complementary skill sets, that you can set expectations up front about what you're contributing in your roles is important. I know so many people that just blindly jump into partnerships and then they figure out their roles along the way. And that's just messy. Mm-hmm. So being able to establish that up front with Linda, that was awesome. And so much so that once we were done, we were just like, let's do another one. Yeah. Like we just went into this as a one deal type of thing, but we're just like, this is cool. I'm hungry for the next one. Let's do a bigger project together. Mm-hmm. And so having all of that established and going through that, we had a post-mortem kind of conversation where we spent about an hour talking about what went well, what we can do better. And we have some approaches that we're going to improve for the next one. But because we established that well in advance and also had the post-mortem, I think this is a partnership that we at least want to do another deal together, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Definitely. And the same sentiments. Like, I think that we found that working with somebody else, you can learn a lot faster. There's somebody else to kind of go through it with you. Even though we're in mentorship, right? Mentorship was so key in giving us the knowledge. We know that there's a support system, but until you actually walk the walk, you can't talk any talk because you don't know, right? You actually have to take that step and do what they've trained you. And that's one thing, right? You can take as many trainings as you want to, but if you actually don't do the steps, you're just wasting your time, right? Mm-hmm. But finding somebody who is aligned, who wants to do the same thing that you can learn together, I feel like you grow faster, you learn faster, do better, so that we can do better the next time.
Yeah.
Is there something that you both learned out of immersion that you feel like is just a golden nugget that you took into this process, that you just made sure you wanted to, take into this process that you learned from that experience?
20 things. Can you pick one specific thing from the mentorship that's
I think the thing about the one thing for me was build a team. That's the one thing that really stood out to me, right? If you can pick the marketing strategy, you can pick, all these other things, but unless it's not about a me mentality, it's about a we mentality. How do we come together to accomplish something? And I think that was what Tristan and Kamahai said too. They said the one thing that they had wished they had done was that they had partnered with somebody who did it well from the very beginning. Mm-hmm. And I think that was the number one takeaway, and build that team. And I'm like, thank you. That's all I needed to hear. You know what I mean? Not like pretend you know what you're doing.
Yeah. Probably the thing that stood out is just kind of what you said earlier, Linda, which is you can learn as much as you want in these mentorships, but you got to just go take action. Like, for years I was on the sideline wanting to become a real estate investor. Then I became a real estate investor, but I was on the sidelines of doing fix and flip projects. So then I took the next step and joined a mentorship, and I learned, how to do it, but I was still on the sidelines. Then I got in the game, and did an actual fix and flip. So until you're in the game, you can learn 20% of what you need, studying it, being in the mentorships, being in the communities, going through the courses. 80% of your learnings are going to be actually doing it. And so taking the action and doing it was the big thing that is always preached in our mentorship, and what really allowed us to learn as much as we have.
I think it's a beautiful thing that the people that you're meeting in these spaces, that you're coming together and you are building a team, and that there's collaboration that is being born out of who you're talking to and the relationships that you're building in these spaces. It's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
It's been a beautiful project, and it's wrapped up nicely, but we're ready for the next one. So
yes, ready for the next one, for a house, so we can learn more things.
Exactly.
I think we're good. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add, Linda. I really, really enjoyed learning about this experience and this journey of first flip out of immersion. All the challenges,
the flip tribe.
All the challenges and that you overcame, and how you both collaboratively tackled those hurdles. And it's all a learning process, right? It's all a learning game to tackle those and figure out how to work through them together. So
absolutely.
Anything else you want to add?
Linda, can you plug yourself and see how they want to follow you or get in touch with you, or what you're looking for?
Oh, well, that's kind of funny because I need to actually look that up, because I don't even know what my Instagram handle is. No, for real, I really don't know. So my daughter is Kaylin.
Your social media manager?
She is, because I tried to make her get into real estate with me. No, that's not her. Okay, so
not yet. Maybe not yet.
She enjoys it, but not as much as I do. Okay, so my Instagram, let me see. Oh, okay. Linda Tanaka Investments. That's my Instagram. I know it's a very common name, so look for Linda Tanaka Investments.
So that's for anybody that has an off-market deal, anybody that wants to share any leads with you, or what else are you looking for?
And just checking out what we're doing. So I think it comes with what do we actually do? And if there is somebody that you feel that we can help in a distressed situation, in a distressed home, let's have a conversation. I think that's key. Because it may not be me who can help you. It might be somebody else. So just, let's see how we can help you. We're just looking to provide you solutions. Right? So
I love it.
Well, thank you, Linda. We appreciate you. I appreciate this conversation. That didn't go too bad.
No, it was fun.
Yeah.
And I think we're looking forward to our celebratory dinner that we're going to have in a couple weeks.
Right.
So we're getting the whole team together, right? So Jared, Elise, Matt, Chastity, you, Chad, me and Ray, bring our families. So it's important to celebrate milestones and wins. And so we're going to get together and have dinner, break some bread, and enjoy our time together and celebrate this win.
Nice.
So look forward to that.
Me too. Thank you so much for
Thanks,
having
Linda.
me. I really appreciate it, because this was a really good follow-up to just say thank you, Lord, that your hand was in this the whole time. And so I'm just really thankful. So thank you too for being there. Thank you, Ray, for being in the background as well, keeping Jason calm, because I needed him to be calm too.
Awesome.
Thanks, Linda. Appreciate you. I'm excited to get together, I think in 2 weeks.
Yep.
Yeah.